Hi, my name is Justin Pritchard. I'm an MD in the Baird Tech and Services team based in London. I'm responsible for our coverage in the GRC space across Europe. And I'd like to welcome the viewers today to the 2023 Governance, Risk and Compliance Showcase. It's a real pleasure for me to have with me Pippa from Board Intelligence. Pippa, over to you to do a bit of an introduction and a bit of background on Board Intelligence.
Thanks, Justin. Hi, everyone. So Board Intelligence. So we founded the business back in 2009, and we specialize singularly in board and management information. So what that means in practice, so we're a tech company. We have a software platform with two products. One is a product called Lucia, which is all about helping organizations write really high quality board and management papers. So embedding focus on what matters, critical thinking skills to ask the questions that matter to an exco and a board, and then AI-powered product that helps people write really concisely and also integrate the right live data sources, as you see. Our second product is a board portal, which helps businesses securely distribute their board and management information to their board members and provides a really lovely environment for them to collaborate on. So across those two products, we have 35,000 board directors that use our platform. 80% of our business comes from organizations that have a material presence in the UK and Europe, 20% international. That's a little bit about us and who we are.
Thanks, Pippa. So topics for today, there's a number of areas we were going to cover. And obviously, you guys have a ton of insight into the key, the hot buttons that are hitting the board agenda, that are going through all the board meetings. Obviously, boards, one of their primary roles is to steer companies and navigate through the complex world of GRC and all the rules and regs that are impacting sort of every part of life. So first topic I was going to ask you about is a little bit around this sort of current macro environment. Obviously, inflation's rampant. We've got supply chain disruption. There's recessionary indicators. You've got all the pressures around sort of ESG and 2050 and carbon neutrality and social and governance and all those things. So when you think of that current macro environment, how's that sort of impacting growth and uptake of sort of GRC solutions from your perspective?
So I think it is a double-edged sword. So I mean, there's no hiding the fact that an inflationary environment makes life hard for all businesses. It's like you start with a plan at the beginning of the year, and you add 10-20% at least cost pressure to that plan, and belts get tightened. So that is inevitable. But I suppose the good for GRC providers is that, I suppose, as you say, with the rise in the focus on good governance, with the rise in focus on environmental factors, and then from an economic perspective now, with basically the rise of interest rates, which of course you get an inflationary environment, that is creating crises. So as we've all seen recently play out in the press, and those crises often then require a GRC solution to stop them happening in other places. So how are we thinking about risk in our business? How are we going to survive if ... XYZ happens? So we've seen, I suppose, in many ways, it's a bit horrible to say we've been the beneficiary of a crisis. But again, across our customer base, we have also seen much more care taken with budgets and where organizations are spending.
Interesting. And when you think about the issues, and obviously when you're in a volatile environment like we are now, and people talk about sort of predictive versus predictive versus reactive compliance, are you seeing sort of a shift in terms of boards and clients wanting to get ahead of problems instead of being told by a regulator, you must do this now? They're aware of the issues, they're aware of regulation maybe taking them, and they're trying to get it, effectively preempt to get in front of the issue coming down.
No, definitely. And I think we've always seen, there's always been a cohort of organizations that have sat in that camp of, we're keen to better understand our business, better understand what might be coming, and therefore are interested and invested in predictive analytics and analysis. But one of the things I think we have also seen is the minute you shine a light on things going wrong in organizations, i.e. that reactive stance, you get a herd effect of then more people saying, I don't want that to be us. I don't want to get to that moment of extreme value destruction. Let's make sure that we are investing more in the predictive side. So I'd say there's a cohort of people who are doing it because they're wired that way. They are in the way that they run their business.
The early adopters in the old world of tech as such.
Exactly. But then I'd say you get much more of a herd mentality based on fear and seeing what else is being played out elsewhere. It's not yet happening to them, but that they join that camp. So I think take Credit Suisse as a great example. So Credit Suisse were in the press for a long time for basically having governance issues and other issues. They were taking, I think, the minimum steps required. They made some poor people choices from a governance perspective as well. And all of that, I suppose, that's been playing out over the last few years, then blew up in a huge value destructive event, essentially, for shareholders. And I think one of the things that we are seeing and hearing more is then more shareholder activism around, we don't want that to be, we don't want that to be us. So whether you're doing it because you were just wired in that way to want to ask the questions about what's happening in the underlying parts of my business, what could go wrong, or whether you're doing it because you're now receiving more pressure about if we're not looking to see what's happening in our business, this could be us in a few years if we don't have the right standards and quality. Then I think that you've kind of got this cycle at the moment that's fueling a kind of desire to invest in the predictive side rather than just the reactive side.
Thinking through some of the sort of key risks and regulatory changes, is there anything that you can see sort of on the horizon that you think's driving, some of your clients and what the sorts of solutions that they're looking for? I think particularly, like we've seen it in other areas, but things like cyber is now effectively becoming a board, cyber risk becoming a board responsibility. Are there things in that of that nature that you're seeing in your business?
Yeah, definitely. And there is, as you say, there's the collection of, I'd say, issues that affect all businesses, like cyber and an understanding. So cyber risk, ransomware, how would the board or organization respond as kind of like one category? Digital skills within the business being another big thing. And in particular, do we have the digital skills, not just at our kind of board and leadership level, but are we investing in them and are we building them so that we can be, I suppose, again, on the front foot in 5 to 10 years time, rather than perhaps feeling more on the back foot. ESG is a topic that, again, is affecting kind of all organizations, I think, with much more focus at the moment on environment because of the obvious targets that have been put in place and regulatory requirements for reporting. But I think we'll see more around the S and the G there. Outside of that, one of the biggest areas, again, when we look at our customer base of change in response to regulation, actually comes from the financial services sector, where I suppose very heavily regulated, but from the perspective of the questions of, do we understand what's happening in our business? So from the perspective of, have we got great quality information in our board level? Can we see? Have we got visibility across the organization, across all of the risks? But then now coming down to thematic. So, we had inquiries before on people and culture after the Walker review. We've just had consumer duty, which all plays to customer. It's almost like we're now going thematically through the things that need to be regulated. So again, if I was a board in FS and thinking about what might be coming, I think it's going back to first principles and saying, right, let's thematically, what's important to the way that we run our business. Do we have good visibility, good understanding of our risks? good predictive indicators of kind of future value creation? And if not, and we want to be on the front foot rather than back foot, let's start investing in that now rather than wait for it to become a problem and then have to be incredibly reactive and move a huge amount of our workforce from one place to just working on how we're going to comply with the regulation. So yeah, one of the things we spend a lot of time talking to our boards and excos about is a lot of the stuff that ultimately ends up as regulation starts from a premise of something that was good business practice anyway. Yeah. So if you think of all of this, if you think of all of this about how do we run our business through the first line and how are we demonstrating that we're running a business well, then you're in a great position when regulation then comes into place to say, now, can you demonstrate how you're doing this through your second and third line rather than waiting for the second and third line compliance activity to come in?
Yeah, as you say, if you're sort of almost in that early adopter of good business principles at the time, wherever they may be taking you, sort of puts you almost ahead of the regulation. If anything, you may influence where those regs, start to focus and look. When you think about all of this stuff and that sort of complexity of regulatory change and trying to stay sort of ahead of the curve, how much do you think then when you sort of sit down with clients, they're wanting purely like software solutions, or actually are they wanting sort of that tech-enabled service piece and that, working with you both from a, almost professional service piece to understand the problem, to unpick it, to then work out the solution before it's sort of implemented and deployed?
Yeah. So really good point. So it took us a little while to, if I say, understand this about our own business, but one of the things that we have come to understand and hold very dear to the way that we operate is, so boards and excos need service. Like they need a level of engagement. So board and executive teams don't typically buy widgets, right? And a lot of the SaaS industry has grown up around, I'm going to say, as low touch. Therefore, I think when you're dealing with kind of board and leadership teams, it becomes low value kind of mass model, which then becomes capital intensive, which then hard to make some of the profitability dynamics work. But actually, one of the things that we've learned is, again, boards at board and executive level, they engage with, they buy, value add. And that comes from a level of service that is with the product. So they interact, of course, through clicks with the product, which needs to deliver value. But with any software product, there is an element of interacting basically at certain points outside of the product. And that element of service, I think, is absolutely key to boards and leadership teams, and just being able to, again, not just be responsive and smiley, but to add value and advice through your offering. So, for example, we have a director community. So I mentioned 35,000 directors use our product, from Fortune 50 through to government and charities. Well, again, we know that we are constantly consuming information around best practice on different topics and themes. Well, being able to share that with our community is a very easy thing for us to do, but delivers a lot of value for them. So I suppose some of the stuff that we've been thinking of is you take some of the disciplines from kind of almost like product-led growth, but assume that your interaction isn't just clicks through the product, it's every single touch point. Some of those will be clicks through the product, some of those won't be. How do you create an environment to succeed? And I think we get 60% of our business comes from referrals, so it's clearly really important.
Really important. And do you monitor, sort of track, within that community, what are the topics, what are the heat maps, what's bubbling up, and then sort of use that to engage, with clients and actually to get them engaging and sort of understand where you may need to take the conversation, the product, the service, the solution, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say it probably goes a step even further than that. So there's engagement and understanding the issues to, as you say, develop, enhance the product, make sure it's serving the information that everyone's kind of looking for and that they need. But also to a certain extent, because of the relative power, basically, that resides within board directors, being able to convene some of those topics, we also spend a lot of time with regulators, with governments. So if I just take a topic recently of around social mobility,
yeah.
I did a lot of work on practically what are the things that need to change. And again, we can share some of the learnings from that community at an early stage before we get to the point of some of the knee-jerk kind of regulation. And we can also showcase some of the good stuff that's already happening that perhaps isn't getting the visibility. But to your point as well, a lot of that learning can go kind of straight back into the product. So when we understand the things that most organizations are grappling with, we can build it into the product. And with the AI revolution, we can help making sure that we've got tools in the product that use the latest AI.
Well, look, Pippa, I really want to thank you for sharing your views and insights and perspectives today at the Baird 2023 Governance, Risk and Compliance Showcase. Thank you for taking the time and appreciate your views.
Thank you for having me.